Yeah, maybe let's zero in on that for a second. This was the Children's Joy Foundation, right? That he set up. And he sets this up in 2007 in California, I believe. And this becomes the kind of locus point for his outreach in America. And it seems like, maybe you can explain this a little bit more, but what they would do is this church or this nonprofit, I guess, we love nonprofits here at TrueAnon, would send out followers of the church to basically, beg for donations to the church, but very aggressively. And a lot of the people that were being sent out were brought to the U.S. under, let's say, circumstances not of their choosing. Maybe you can explain that a little bit.
Yeah. So a lot of, this is actually, to be frank, this is a common practice of churches bringing quote unquote church workers from the Philippines to the U.S. And then from there, it's really easy for it to become a labor trafficking scheme or other type of trafficking scheme. But with Quiboloy in particular, yes, they would recruit people from the Philippines to come here to the U.S. under, they would say it's under a student visa or a religious visa, and then change it to a different type of visa, or even conducting like false marriages to have people stay here in the U.S. And so then from there, they would say, oh, we're going to pay you. But then in reality, they wouldn't actually get paid. They would tell them, you have to go get these donations. You have to go basically peddling on the streets. They would sell like pastries, Krispy Kreme donuts, like begging people for money for this foundation. That wasn't really going back to any of these workers or these, especially women. They particularly targeted women to do this type of work, and especially young women as well, specifically. So they would basically traffic these young women from the Philippines here to the U.S., employ them under this guise of, oh, you're working for the church. They would also tell them that, you're going to be working on our worship team, because people really were drawn to the churches because of his worship team. Even if you look at his live streams now, he spends like 30 minutes on worship, which is like, us Filipinos, we love to sing and worship.
It's true. Yes.
Worship feels really good, when you're singing these worship songs. So of course people want to do worship. But then when they get here, they actually had to do this like toiling hard labor of soliciting donations from people on the street. And then even when they were doing this, there was a lot of physical threats, a lot of verbal threats against these women. If they weren't doing their job enthusiastically enough or getting enough donations. There was, just a lot of different ways that they would threaten these workers and these women, and put them in like really vulnerable and scary positions, especially because I think the people that he was recruiting were mostly women from the ages of 12 to 25. So really, really young women.
One thing that I read about is that, because they have Children's Joy, not just in America, but other countries as well, including in the Philippines.
Yes.
And what they would do is, they would take like busloads of little kids, right? Like the children of congregants. And they would, take them from their parents, presumably either out of school or out of work, and they would send them to different areas, put them all in a shack, like kind of crammed together, and then they would make them pretend to be orphans or deaf and mute or blind and beg for donations for Children's Joy. And another thing that they would have them do in America is they would have them pretend to be other nonprofits. And there was a organization in Hawaii. I can't remember exactly the name of it. It was like the biggest like homeless outreach organization in the state. And they had been told by some of their members and some of their donors that these little kids had been going around asking for donations in their name. And then when they asked them for some kind of credentials, they actually pulled out little Children's Joy pamphlets and stuff like that. And so, they know what they're doing. And there's no indication that any of the actual money went towards anything like this. Like that's another thing I think to make clear. It seems pretty clear, and certainly the FBI is alleging that all of these donations actually just went to Quiboloy's just like his personal coffers and the coffers of the people that were surrounding him.
Oh yeah. I mean, it wasn't going to the children. It wasn't going to the people soliciting the donations. Quiboloy had mansions. Quiboloy had, access to whatever he wanted, whatever type of like wealth he wanted. It was clear, and he also had his own cronies that were also doing the dirty work, the ones who were filing the paperwork and the visas, and also coercing these women, threatening them as well. So it's not just Quiboloy, it's himself he's the mastermind, some may say, but he also had, I think it was like 8 other church officials that were indicted alongside him that were also doing his dirty work. So yeah, it's very clear to us that money, just like in the same fashion of a lot of Filipino bureaucrats, was not going to the people, even though they say all these nice things and talk about how much they want to help children. It really was going to their own pockets.
Jeffrey Epstein.